Welcome to the Skull King Football Podcast, presented by Vox DFS Firelines. Now, here are your hosts, Justin and Ryan Skullrood.
Okay, everybody, welcome to the Skull King Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host tonight, Justin Skullrood. With me, as always, your founder, Ryan Skullrood. Say hi, everybody.
Hi,
Ryan, to everybody.
Hi, everybody.
And then with us tonight, we have Greg with us, joining us for a mock draft episode tonight, doing a standard mock draft. Say hi to the people, Greg.
Hello. How's everybody doing?
And once again, we're going to be doing a standard mock draft tonight. We're also going to be doing a little bit of news and notes. There's not a lot to cover within the last week, but there are a few pieces that we will go over. And then we will be announcing the winner of our Twitter competition, or what would you, not a competition, but our Twitter.
It was since we hit 1,000 followers officially on Twitter, we decided to celebrate and have a little retweet contest for people to retweet a certain thing that we put up. And the winner, who I put all the entrants, which I think we had like 25 or so, all the entrants onto like a randomizer, and whoever ended up at the top wins the sweatshirt, and we will contact them to have a Skull King hoodie sent out to them.
And so before we get too far into this, we do want to list the sponsor for the show in the Vox DFS. They're going to be sponsoring our news and notes section here. Vox DFS Firelines is one of the industry leaders in consulting and providing DFS lines for just about any sport or platform. There is currently a major special currently going on where you can subscribe to their information at only $25 a month to get draft lines for pretty much any sport: MLB, NASCAR, NFL, MLS, PGA, whether you prefer to play on Yahoo, DraftKings, or FanDuel. Vox has lineup experts to help you pull in cash. Vox DFS consultants will teach you bankroll management, to learn what contests to play and when, so you don't overextend yourself. Once again, go to voxdfs.com. That's VOKSDFS.com, and tell them that Skull King Football sent you. And now on into our news and notes. We're going to start with the Seattle Times. Bob Condotta believes that Lacy and Rawls will take a fairly equal share of base down carries this year. Ryan, does this surprise you? What's your initial reaction here living in Seattle and hearing that from Bob Condotta?
I think that Bob Condotta is just covering all bases because no one has the slightest clue of who will actually be the lead back going into the year. So I think it's safe to say that for at least now, they will split carries. So that's the only reason that I can say that, that they'll have an equal share. I really think that personally, I think that Lacy will be the starter unless he goes down. I don't see Rawls taking over that position, but that's just me. I really think it'll be Lacy, and Rawls will be the secondary guy for base down.
Yeah, I mentioned this off show, and I'll mention it here. The funniest tweet I saw today was that CJ Prosise is one rolled ankle and one Chinese extra value meal away from becoming the only back in town. Maybe Chinese extra value meal was not the proper language, but essentially it was they're one egg roll and ankle roll away from CJ Prosise being the only back in town. But moving on, this is an interesting note coming out of Jets camp, is that Connor Hughes of New York Jets Advanced Media's expects Matt Forte to be the Jets' offensive workhorse this season. Greg, me and Ryan have talked a little bit about this in our thoughts of where Matt Forte and Bilal Powell stand. But what are your initial thoughts on this report coming out of Jets camp?
I think that's the thing that they basically have to do. I mean, ultimately, you want to think that Forte is going to have something in the tank or whatever at the start of the year. He deserves some level of respect, and it doesn't deserve to start the year behind Bilal Powell for any reason. But whether or not Forte is really quote unquote a workhorse by the time you even get through 5 games of the season, I would think would be a miracle. The guys can get absolutely killed on that team. So I don't see him lasting in that workhorse role. I think it's a public statement of just saying who's the guy in the room, but it's not going to mean anything long term. I don't think he's going to last a season.
Yeah, those were mine and Ryan's initial thoughts as well. Jets are almost better to lose and see what they can get out of a younger talent like Bilal Powell, who isn't that much younger, currently only 20. It's currently 28 years old and not that much younger than Forte himself. But on to Redskins camp. Coach Jay Gruden gushed about Jamison Crowder. He's an excellent dynamic player and continues to prove every day why we like him so much. Considering he's the only wide receiver returning in the starting lineup for the Washington Redskins, does this mean anything, Ryan?
No. I mean, yes, he's a dynamic player. I still think that Terrell Pryor will.
So is every player at the NFL level.
He will become. I think Pryor will become the number 1. Crowder will remain the number 2, kind of a slot guy. He can run the Percy Harvin type of role because of his speed, his agility. He's their main guy between the 20s. Really, he's not going to score touchdowns for the most part unless it's something that he's broken away on, a big PPR target. So I think that he's a dynamic player and he will be used, but I don't think he'll be the number 1. PPR, I think he'll be a very solid guy, especially if in leagues that have return yards. So,
yeah, interesting to note that Terrell Pryor did work out with Antonio Brown this offseason to improve his game. Obviously, Antonio Brown, one of the top 3 wide receivers in the league, if not the top receiver in the league. So I do expect a little bit better from Terrell Pryor, but he's still only going to be a second-year receiver, incredibly fast, incredibly talented. But we'll see where it goes. Cam Newton made his first throws 2 days ago after shoulder surgery in the offseason. That's something to kind of be aware of. Is Cam Newton really even on your radar based off of last season for what you're looking to do in your drafts, Greg?
Well, I think he's still, a top 10 quarterback. I would expect more from him this year than last year. I think the draft and getting McCaffrey and was it Samuel from Ohio State. I think that's going to add, a lot of depth to that offense, and that's only going to benefit him. So I would expect more from Cam Newton this year, and I think he's going to get drafted a lot later because of last year's performance. So he's going to be a relative value, I think, this year.
Moving on, a little bit of bad news for Michael Floyd. He was sentenced to 1 day in jail. Vikings are standing behind him and keeping him due to a report. But do you believe, Ryan, that Michael Floyd will even see the field this year?
No. He might. But I mean, he's got 2-3 guys. I mean, he's got Diggs ahead of him, who's their number 1. Thielen, who had a solid year last year, who developed a real good chemistry with Bradford, especially over the second half of the season. You've got Kyle Rudolph as the tight end, and you've got Laquan Treadwell, who is their one of their top. I want to say he was their first-round pick in 2016. Who right now has been running as the number 3 wide receiver. So where's Michael Floyd going to be with that injury? So
yeah.
I don't see it. So Justin, you skipped a story that I think that we should cover.
The Alshon Jeffrey thing, I didn't think it was that much news. Is that what you were referring to?
Yes, just so that Greg and I can laugh about it.
Okay, Eagles wide receivers coach Mike Gross said that Alshon Jeffrey had his best offseason since 2013. meaning he didn't get injured, I guess. I'll let you guys go to this. I'll let Greg kind of get on his low horse, I guess, on the Bears. It's not a high horse.
Well, what is what is a passes for a great offseason? I mean, if you're not photographed on the beach being fat, or you're not drunk behind the wheel, or you don't get in some other kind of legal fracas. I mean, what else is the measure of an offseason? I mean, do you like catch more balls playing in the backyard with some neighborhood kids? I mean, how are you measuring what the heck he did in the offseason without quantifying it? It doesn't make any sense.
No,
Ryan, any other pieces to add?
Really, I just wanted to bring it up because in the title of our wide receiver tiers podcast, I actually, what was it? I called it wide receiver news, NFL news, and why we hate Alshon Jeffrey.
Right.
Yeah,
because we have him ranked so much lower than so many people because everyone thinks, well, this will be a new opportunity for him. Last year, he showed that he couldn't be a number one. Then he got in. He dealing with a little bit of injury, and then he gets suspended for PEDs. I can't remember which one it was. We always just suspect Adderall because that seems to be what everyone's on nowadays.
Yeah, that's the go-to if you failed because they can just say that's what it is, and it's the least of a faux pas in public eye.
Yeah, so you've got that. They didn't work because he still wasn't having all that great of a season. Yeah, he didn't have he didn't have a whole lot of quarterback help. But even with Cutler, he wasn't doing. I didn't see much out of him. And then who took over from the guy that's now in San Francisco?
Hoyer.
Hoyer just wanted to throw the ball to Cameron Meredith. So
because he catches the ball. And you know what? It just came to me who Alshon Jeffrey is. Like if you think back, like in movies, like every once in a while they'll feature some actress, and all of a sudden out of nowhere, this actress starts getting role after role after role, and they try to feature her in these roles where she's supposed to be like the attractive one that men are drawn to her. And you look at her and you're perplexed, and you're like, but why? Why did they cast her? Like there was that girl in like some of those teen movies, and she had like a big forehead, and I don't know what her name was, but they kept thrusting her out there. And it's like that's how Alshon Jeffrey has been thrust upon us. He's one of these faux leading women. It's like that's not Angelina Jolie or Jennifer Aniston. It's some girl that I would see at the Circle K. That's kind of Alshon Jeffrey.
This is making for gold for when we redo our intro and have everyone with a quote. Yeah. That may be
Alshon Jeffrey is the random girl you see at the Circle K.
Circle K. That may be yours, Greg.
Right behind the counter too. I'm not talking about in line. I mean, every once in a while you get lucky there, but I'm talking about behind the counter.
How much time do you spend at Circle K, Greg?
Actually, I'm there quite a bit.
Our last piece of news. Came out today. Former Bills running back Carlos Williams has been suspended by the NFL for a period of at least 1 year. Ryan, you take it here. I don't know much to say other than I'm not surprised.
And
he's had some off-the-field issues.
There we go. Sorry, Justin, you froze up a little bit there. That's all right. Really, Carlos Williams has just had trouble. Put on a whole, had a great season his rookie year being the backup for LaShawn McCoy. Had like a streak of like 6 or 8 consecutive games with a touchdown. Everyone thought he was going to be the next big thing. And then, the off season happens and his girlfriend gets pregnant. And he puts on a whole bunch of sympathy weight, and then he has to deal with a drug suspension. And so then the Bills cut him. He goes somewhere else. I think it was the Steelers. The Steelers give him a shot. I think they cut him. They end up cutting him too. And then now you've got this. I think this is it for him. I don't think Carlos Williams is coming back, which is a shame because he really showed a lot of talent and a lot of spark that first year.
Yeah, he was only drafted in 2015, so it's not like this is a guy who's been in the league for a little bit and then had issues. I'm hoping it's not the last we see of him because he's still young, and I'm hoping that this suspension kind of wakes him up a little bit, and can get a little bit of some life-changing going on. Much like someone like an Austin Seferian-Jenkins has managed to turn his life around a little bit after having some alcohol issues. But hopefully things can turn around for him. And so moving on, Ryan, how about you get into the Twitter competition and announcing who our winner is?
All right. So what we did here on Twitter is we officially hit 1,000 followers, which we had been stuck a lot lower than that for a long time. And so we did our best to really get into what was going on and getting as many people involved as possible. So we ran a Twitter contest for you to retweet the tweet that we had up about our sweaters, our hoodies, with the hashtag Skull King Nation to qualify. We had 25 people do that. And so after putting all those names into random.org, our Twitter winner is at DoorGuy11, which let me make sure I've got him right. I believe
we got a name there.
Yeah, well, no, it's Leafs Nation Sensation. He's a Canadian follower who's really
Yay, Canada!
Yeah, go Canada. So I will be since I'm pretty sure he's probably not actually listening right now. I will make sure to direct message him so that we can get his address and get that sent out to him as soon as possible. And so real quick, I'll go ahead and make, since we're going to be doing another giveaway here soon, the next giveaway, since I actually have it right in front of me, it's not this one, it's this one. For this, I think we'll do it, Justin, I think we'll do this one at the end of this next month, since we're kind of figuring out when we want to do this. The next giveaway will be a signed T.Y. Hilton picture. And we've even got on the back the certificate of authenticity. So this is, so that you will know officially this is not just some, one of us scribbling on a picture of T.Y. Hilton, that this has actually been, witnessed that T.Y. Hilton officially is the one who signed this. And we'll be doing that as a giveaway. We're still figuring out how we want to give that away and what we want to do, how we want to put that giveaway together. But at the end of next month, the winner of whatever giveaway we're doing will be we'll be getting a signed picture of T.Y. Hilton. So,
one last piece of a shameless plug for the website. You can support the show for as little as $1 through our Patreon page at patreon.com/SkullKingNation. You can also visit it through the website at SkullKingFootball.com and click the Join Us or the Join Us tab. And visit over to the page. You can support the show there as well as see some other content, additional content there, as well as monthly giveaways to guarantee your spot in case you don't see some of the things that are on Twitter and those kinds of things. But before we get too late into this, let's get into our mock draft. Breakdown of our mock draft roster positions. We do have one quarterback. And these are the starting positions: one quarterback, two running backs, two wide receivers, one tight end, one flex, which would be a wide receiver, running back, or tight end, one defense, one kicker, and then 6 bench spots. I did click randomize, and we got the 4th draft position. This is also a standard draft, not a PPR. Snake selection, and as it is loading, we are using the Draft Wizard by fantasypros.com. It is a great tool, and I highly advise using it for a lot of your drafts moving up. And so as we get into this, as a standard draft, 3 running backs were taken first. David Johnson was taken first overall, Le'Veon Bell second, and Ezekiel Elliott third, which leaves Antonio Brown, Julio Jones, Odell Beckham Jr., and LaShawn McCoy as the top 4. Ryan, I'll let you start on who you think we should go with, and then really quickly go to Greg, and then I'll wrap up really quickly, and then we'll come to a consensus on who we pick.
I really think that this one's pretty easy, that Antonio Brown is the best pick to go with on this one. So some people can argue Odell Beckham Jr. I think that he may still have a little bit of competition with Sterling Shepard and Brandon Marshall coming in. Yeah, that could clear things up for Odell. I still am a little more sure on Antonio Brown. So,
what about you, Greg?
I'm 100% Antonio Brown right there.
Yeah, me too. So Antonio Brown is our first pick. We have selected him. Those that went after him: Julio Jones, Odell Beckham Jr., Melvin Gordon, LaShawn McCoy, Mike Evans, Jordy Nelson. For some reason, the draft simulator has paused.
Gotta love it when it does that.
Yeah.
Is it still paused?
Yeah, I don't know what's going on here.
Hey, we love technical difficulties.
Yes. It can't be the Wi-Fi because I'm still on the show.
You haven't completely frozen yet.
Yeah, I haven't frozen yet.
Yeah, so we're not having a Wi-Fi issue here.
Oddly enough, I ran a mock draft on this when we were setting up the show. I got the number 1 pick, but the number 4 pick was Antonio Brown.
Is it still frozen, Justin?
It is still frozen. Ryan, how about you set it up on your end?
Okay, so
and then we'll have you take it because it's not Wi-Fi. It may just be technical difficulties on my end. But to avoid future technical difficulties, why don't we just send it over to you?
All right, let me redo this. Make sure we've got this all set up again.
And the 4th pick again, which I'm assuming would be Antonio Brown again.
I'm gonna guess so. 12 snake, regular, standard. All right, all experts. 1, 2, 2, 1, 1 flex. All right, so here we go. So Le'Veon Bell, yeah, Le'Veon Bell, David Johnson, Ezekiel Elliott are the first 3 picks. So obviously Antonio Brown is going to be our pick at number 4. So there we go. And who knows? Oh man, I'll bet it's the draft simulator. Are you kidding me? That this is what's freezing up on us tonight?
The one website we use for mock draft has now gone down. Hey, it's not us. Woo!
Well, if you want, like I said, I got the board up here. I can go from Antonio Brown. We just wouldn't be making picks, but we can debate what pick was made for us and what was around it.
Yeah, we could do that.
Although that might kind of suck, but
yeah, come on.
Are you guys in the technology hub that is Seattle?
Yes.
Yeah. Always impressed me how lousy that reception I had with anything I was doing up in Seattle technology-wise. But that's just a sidebar item, to kind of fill the space as we wait for you guys to negotiate these challenging waters.
I got it. Here we go. All right. So after we took Antonio Brown, the next picks were Julio Jones, Odell Beckham Jr., Mike Evans. So 4 wide receivers off the board. Then LaShawn McCoy, AJ Green, Jordy Nelson, Melvin Gordon, Devonta Freeman rounds out the first round. So then for the second round, DeMarco Murray, T.Y. Hilton, Michael Thomas, Jay Ajayi, Leonard Fournette goes in the middle of the second round before Jordan Howard. Jordan Howard was taken number 6, Marshawn Lynch number 7, and Todd Gurley number 8. So here's what we have so far. What we have left over. So we have all the quarterbacks left. Running backs, we have Lamar Miller, Isaiah Crowell, Carlos Hyde. Wide receiver, we have Dez Bryant, Amari Cooper, Doug Baldwin. All of our tight ends are available. So for me, I'm probably at this point, just with the way it's shaping out, I could go Dez Bryant. I could also go Lamar Miller. I could go either way. So I'm not going running, or I'm not going tight end yet. So, Greg, what do you got?
I took I would take a quarterback at this spot. There's no way I think I could justify taking any of those names over the top 2 quarterbacks, which are Brady and Rodgers, and that's Who do you like better? I personally think Brady's going to have a monster season, so I would actually take my quarterback here.
See, this is where three people doing a mock draft, all the draft strategies completely explode.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because for me, I think there's quarterback value much deeper, and I like to grab a little bit better players in the wide receiver and running back position here. I like Lamar Miller for as much as he had his issues last year. I still think he's the number one back there. With the quarterback situation the way it is, he's still a running back who can catch the ball out of the backfield and be an option to catch and run to get yardage. They fed him the rock a lot, so I like Lamar Miller here currently. I think it's a little early on Crowell. As much as I like Crowell, I'd be fine with that. But with it being a standard, I like to grab a running back here. Ryan?
I almost want to go with Greg just because I never do that. I never grab a quarterback.
Let's do it. Let's see what it does.
I guarantee you it'll pull Rodgers right after him as soon as you do it.
Personal note, just as I know we'll get to draft strategy later in the season, later into July, but you want to draft and see how things will go based off of maybe you go wide receiver, and then see how your draft goes out the rest of the way through and how you would pick later on in rounds. I've never drafted a quarterback so high. Let's see what it does, and maybe we go quarterback here.
All right, so we're going Brady.
Yeah, let's go Brady.
There it is. Drafted Brady.
I would definitely go Brady over Rodgers.
All right, so what do you know?
Rodgers came next.
So after no, not even close.
Really? Wow.
Sort of close. So after Tom Brady went Dez Bryant, then Rob Gronkowski. I still think that's way too early to take a tight end, including Rob Gronkowski. And then Amari Cooper, Alshon Jeffrey led off the third round. Aaron Rodgers was the second pick in round 3. And Lamar Miller went third pick in round 3. So what we have left so far, we have Tom Brady as our quarterback and Antonio Brown as our wide receiver. What is being suggested for us is Isaiah Crowell and Carlos Hyde are the top 2 running backs. Top 2 wide receivers are Doug Baldwin and DeAndre Hopkins. Plus, and then you go tight end is Travis Kelce and Jordan Reed. For me, I don't go Isaiah Crowell here. And the main reason is all 3 of our players would then have a week 9 bye. Now, I usually say, don't worry about bye weeks but for now, I know that there's some that do. So, I would go with Doug Baldwin. I think there are some other running backs that I like a little bit later that we could get. That's personally me. So, Greg.
I would go at that spot with DeAndre Hopkins. I like what he's going to produce this year with ultimately a better quarterback situation. Get Tom Savage PI out of the way and get Deshaun Watson in there. And I think Hopkins ends up having a really nice year. That's the way I would see it.
Justin,
I have no problem going Hopkins there. He will have a better year this year, and if we look at where his draft status was last year, he was one of the top 4 or 5 wide receivers taken.
He was going like 11 between 11 and 14 overall. So.
Yeah, overall. And so the talent is there, the value is there, and I think getting him as the 3rd pick in standard, a lot of people don't like getting running backs as late as we're taking them, but I like the upside there with that choice.
All right, so we're taking DeAndre Hopkins. So we have both of our wide receivers, and we've got Tom Brady. All right, so let's see. After we took DeAndre Hopkins, Brandon Cooks went off the board. Then Isaiah Crowell, Devontae Adams, Doug Baldwin didn't go until 3-8. Christian McCaffrey, then Carlos Hyde, Mike Gillislee, and Demaryius Thomas round out round 3. Round 4, Drew Brees, Travis Kelce, Jordan Reed back-to-back, Sammy Watkins, LeGarrette Blount, Joe Mixon,
Way too early.
Terrell Pryor and Spencer Ware. So really we need to start looking at running back. So our running back options at this point are CJ Anderson and Ty Montgomery. We also have out there so far Mark Ingram and Eddie Lacy and Tevin Coleman. Just in case, we've got Greg Olsen and Jimmy Graham as the top 2 tight ends out there. We already have our quarterback. So personally, I think going with possibly CJ Anderson, simply because he's the Denver offense is going to have to go through the running back. They've improved their offensive line with their draft. So that would probably be, if it were a PPR league, I would probably go Ty Montgomery instead. But that's me. So I think we could go CJ Anderson and pick up, one or two other, another guy a little bit later, maybe with our next pick who could really help us out. So
for me at this point, there's a lot of names there that have a lot of tarnish on them. The argument for CJ Anderson has basically been the same argument for a while, and it hasn't really panned out.
No.
Ty Montgomery, again, is a good guy in a PPR league, but not this route. The guy that I would see at this pick that has, and it's going to sound early, but is going to have a better opportunity to carry the ball is Dalvin Cook. I would go with him here.
Down at 24, you'd put him over Mark Ingram, Eddie Lacy, or Tevin Coleman?
I would, because Mark Ingram is going to be giving up something to Adrian Peterson. They didn't just sign him to, have a free bobblehead night. CJ Anderson, for the reasons I said. Ty Montgomery. there's who has a better chance to start and actually maybe be, is he the front runner for Rookie of the Year? No, but does he maybe have a better argument for, contributing more than those other guys? I think he does. Who else is going to run the ball there? They got no running back.
Well, here's a thought. Well, Justin, go ahead and give me your thoughts first real quick.
Ryan, I'll let you go first.
What I was going to say is, instead of taking Tevin Coleman or Dalvin Cook here, I want to say there are three picks to finish off the 4th round after us, and then 3 picks to start off the 5th round.
Mm-hmm.
Do we think that Dalvin Cook could possibly make it to the 5th round with the tight
I think Dalvin Cook will be there in the 5th.
You think he'll be there? So could we take Greg Olsen, who always has been an extremely solid tight end the last couple of years, and has been Cam Newton's top target, even with Kelvin Benjamin there. If we were to go maybe Greg Olsen and then look at Dalvin Cook in the next round.
I would agree if he's there. So I would say mine is the riskier of the 2 picks.
Okay, so if Greg Olsen's there, take Greg Olsen and then hope that Dalvin Cook makes it the 6 more picks to us.
Yep. I'm good with that.
Greg?
Sounds good.
So we draft Greg Olsen. And look who is still there, Dalvin Cook.
Nice.
Tevin Coleman is actually still there as well. On here, it's telling us to take, it says that Mark Ingram should be our top pick. But no, in terms of, I'd agree that, taking a rookie is risky as our top running back in Dalvin Cook. We're definitely going on that 0 RB strategy with this.
Very, very zero RB.
Let's be honest. In standard, that's not necessarily. That's not very often seen. I've used it effectively. This is more of a PPR strategy, but I still think that this could work. So if we were to take Dalvin Cook here, since he's the most likely to get carries, I'll be honest, I'm not. There's some interesting characters that we could still take down the road that could provide a lot of value. So if we're going to take a little risk here and go with Dalvin Cook. And I'm sure that there are a ton of people right now that are just absolutely freaking out when they watch this or when they listen to this, saying, what in the world are you guys thinking?
I would say on Mark Ingram, do you think you haven't seen his best yet? Is this the year it's going to blossom with an older Drew Brees, fewer weapons in the passing game, and he's a year older? I don't think so.
And a future Hall of Famer, quote unquote, sitting in his backfield.
Right. I don't see it. I mean, if you don't see, I mean, if Cook might well be a bust because he's a Florida State guy. You don't know what you're getting out of it. But
well, Carlos Williams was a Florida State guy too.
right. There's my point. Right. So I mean, but how many touches are they going to get relative, and who has the unknown potential? You've already seen what the other guys can do.
All right. We're gonna take Dalvin. Oh, that's another week. All right, we're gonna take Dalvin Cook. There it is. Dalvin Cook is our running back 1.
If he ends up rookie of the year, we're going to do a special just about that.
Okay, so after Dalvin Cook, then Doug Martin, who's missing the first at least 3 games because of suspension. Tyreek Hill, Keenan Allen, Julian Edelman, Ty Montgomery, Matt Ryan, Corey Davis at the end of round 5 with Michael Crabtree. To start off number 6, or start off the 6th round, you had Delaney Walker, Tevin Coleman, Mark Ingram fell all the way down there, Andrew Luck, Ben Roethlisberger, Russell Wilson, Jimmy Graham, and Derek Carr. So we have obviously, before the run on quarterbacks went, we already got ours. So we are a little bit out in front of the pack here. It'll be interesting. Really, it'll be interesting to see how this all turns out for us when it grades us in the very end. So, all right, what we have left, we still have a flex spot, and we'll pick all of our bench spots before we even think about DST or kicker. We've got a running. We need a running back spot and a wide receiver spot. So here's the running backs available: Frank Gore, Bilal Powell, Amir Abdullah, Paul Perkins, Danny Woodhead. Those are the top ones available. In terms of wide receivers, Emmanuel Sanders, Larry Fitzgerald, Martavis Bryant, Dante Moncrief. I think, if we go to running back, I like, this may sound funny, I like Frank Gore. One, because of the value. He's going to be given the ball a lot. And what we could do is not necessarily a handcuff type situation, but more of drafting a total backfield, is look at, who is the guy down below that they drafted? Man, who was it? I should know this. Anyways, the rookie out of, I want to say it was Florida International.
Was that Marlon Mack?
Marlon Mack. There we go. Yes. So Frank Gore. Maybe look at drafting Marlon Mack down the road. Maybe it's like our last guy. No, he won't last because he's number 56 in terms of running back. So, I think Frank Gore, due to this being a standard league, he's going to get the ball a lot. He's going to get close to that 1,000 yards. I like him. Or it's either going that or Amir Abdullah. I like Abdullah too, personally. So.
I would prefer to go Frank Gore personally because
the injury history
with Amir Abdullah, and when you think Indianapolis Colts, you think a little bit more balanced. When you think Detroit, you think throwing the rock all over the field.
Yeah.
I don't think at any point Detroit would be a run-first offense, which is why I'm not sold on Amir Abdullah. So if I can, to fill out my roster, I think the safer bet is to go with Frank Gore, who has found his way to 1,000 yards every year. So to me, it's Frank Gore.
I would agree. I would go with Frank Gore in that position. I think the relative value, who else is going to get the ball, type of argument. I like it.
All right. So we took Frank Gore. After that was Tyler Eifert, Bilal Powell, Cam Newton, Martellus Bennett, Emmanuel Sanders, and Marcus Mariota. So we have our two running backs, our 2 wide receivers. We are looking at a flex at this point. And so what we have available is at running back, we have Amir Abdullah, Paul Perkins, Danny Woodhead, Robert Kelly, and Samaje Perine. Wide receiver, we have Larry Fitzgerald, Martavis Bryant, Dante Moncrief, Stefan Diggs, and Jamison Crowder. I mean, I like Larry Fitzgerald, but how much longer can Fitz keep going? He's going. Well, here's the deal. He is going to be the top target no matter who's the quarterback in Arizona. It doesn't matter if it's going to be Carson Palmer. He's still going to throw the ball to his safety net and Larry Fitzgerald. Who is it? Drew Stanton is their backup. When he's the quarterback, he's targeting Larry Fitzgerald even more. So I really think that Larry Fitzgerald is probably our best bet at this point for our flex position. Who could, I mean, and depending on what happens, he could also move into that wide receiver 2 spot.
Well, and there's if this were a PPR league, he wouldn't even be there, right? I mean, he's guaranteed not to be there. So I think it's a good relative value there. I think it's, you see all the same names that we confronted with the last pick. They're all kind of still here right now. He's the most sure thing of the group. So that's what I would do.
Yeah, the point I want to make is if you would have told me that I could get Larry Fitzgerald as our 7th pick, I would climb on board. Yeah. So, to me, let's go.
All right, so there's Larry Fitzgerald. So after Fitzgerald, oh, gosh, what are people thinking? All right. After Larry Fitzgerald, Hunter Henry, another tight end, goes off the board. Kirk Cousins, Kyle Rudolph, O.J. Howard. All right. I'm going to say this.
O.J. Howard went before.
I'm going to say this again and again. I've mentioned this before. Give credit to the Eat Sleep Fantasy podcast. They actually had one of the Tampa Bay beat writers on their podcast to talk about O.J. Howard and Cameron Brate. O.J. Howard is still behind Cameron Brate, and he's not even close to overtaking Cameron Brate. People need to stop taking O.J. Howard above the number 6 tight end in fantasy football last year. Cameron Brate is still going to be the number 1 tight end because O.J. Howard, while he is crazy athletic, has only 7 touchdowns to his name in college football and did not have I think he had one season over 600 yards receiving. So he wasn't utilized as a tight end. He was a blocking guy. Alabama was a running team. I'm still not sold on O.J. Howard. I think he's a great dynasty pick, but I don't think he's a solid contender to be a starting tight end, especially a tight end 1. Not going to happen. Okay, I'm off my soapbox. 7-9. Brandon Marshall, then Jamison Crowder, Jameis Winston, and then Martavis Bryant to round out the 7th. The 8th round, Amir Abdullah, Kelvin Benjamin, Danny Woodhead, Paul Perkins, Deshaun Jackson. Oh, he didn't make it. Kareem Hunt was taken 8-6. I was hoping he would make it to our pick in the 8th round, because I think that Kareem Hunt takes over Spencer Ware's position by midseason. Then Derrick Henry and Dante Moncrief. So here we go. In round 8, let's kind of refresh who our team is. We actually have all of our starters except for our defense and kicker, which we'll take with our last 2 picks. So we've got Tom Brady as our quarterback. Our 2 running backs are Dalvin Cook and Frank Gore. Our wide receivers are Antonio Brown, DeAndre Hopkins. Our tight end is Greg Olsen, and our flex is Larry Fitzgerald. I mean,
that's a killer team.
Well, I was going to say this is a.
We need a little help in the running back spot, but that's still solid.
Well, and let's, if you go to, Sean Siegley, who's credited with the original, with being the guy that really brought the zero RB strategy to light.
One of my personal heroes.
He would say, this is great. This is exactly the way you want to go, because then you want to make sure you get all these, a whole bunch of running backs who have the chance to take over.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So,
or have a very injury-prone starter in front of them.
Yeah. So you want to look at the possibility moves. So here's what gets interesting. So our top 2 running backs that are available to us are Robert Kelly and Samaje Perine, the 2 guys who are supposed to be fighting it out for the starting position in Washington. Which one do you take? because there have been reports that Samaje Perine they're throwing everything at him, and that he very well could take over. They basically drafted him to try to take over Robert Kelly's position. He had a stud. He had an amazing combine. Was beating linemen in terms of the bench press reps. Is a freak of an athlete in terms of just his bulk and his size. Can run people over. Robert Kelly showed some flashes last year of being a solid ball carrier. So, which one do we take? Greg,
Go for it, Greg.
It's even a little too many rookies for my taste. I mean, I can see the argument for Perine, but I think, Rob Kelly's the safer of the two, but I don't know. I could see it. I could see, given what we've done to this point, we need a lot of upside potentially off the bench. Perine's the pick.
Okay. Well, and so here, just so we know the rest of our options. Farther down, our running backs are Robert. So we got Robert Kelly and Samaje Perine. Then Jonathan Stewart, Matt Forte, and Theo Riddick.
No.
So. All right, Justin.
To me, I'm leaning a little bit towards Robert Kelly. I don't want to get two rookies on our roster personally, but now that we're in the bench, I don't know. The only to me, just looking at 2016 for Rob Kelly, he had a total of 7 touchdowns, 6 on the ground, 1 in the air. That's solid numbers. Will Perine be able to do the same? I don't know. But to me, I'm leaning a little bit more towards Robert Kelly. I do want to get a running back here from Washington, because one of the two will really be the starter.
Yeah. He did finish. What was it? It took him till, was it week 6 or 7 to finally take over the position himself. And at that point, he had 700. He finished with 704 yards. He had a 4.2 average, which is pretty good. You get above that 4, and you're in solid position. I don't know. He's the safer pick, but I'm not necessarily always prone to go with the safer pick. So
you're the tiebreaker. Go for it.
We're gonna go with Perine, and I know that we're gonna absolutely be getting reamed over the coals for this in our comments. But again, everyone's gonna have different opinions. Everyone's gonna view things differently. The only way to tell who's right and who's wrong is when you see it at the end of the season. All this is conjecture. I love what was it Evan Silva or someone who said everyone everyone's a fantasy football expert, just not everyone's quite as correct as everyone else.
Yeah, pretty much.
Really, everyone's a fantasy football expert. You have to decide it on the field at the end. So,
well, and one random note that I want to put in here is, when it comes to rookies, don't draft a rookie tight end.
No,
it just doesn't happen. Unless your name is Rob Gronkowski, and that's obviously because Gronk does what Gronk does.
Well,
but
because he had Tom Brady throwing to him,
and he had Tom Brady throwing to him. But the other thing is, I feel it's easier to grab a rookie running back than necessarily a rookie wide receiver. I think there's a little bit more history of a rookie being more impactful as a running back than a wide receiver personally. So as much as I liked Rob Kelly, I'm not too upset about the Perine pick.
All right. So moving on. So we have 2 running backs and a backup. We have 2 wide receivers and a flex, a tight end and a quarterback. So here's where we get into some interesting situations, because we start dealing with bye weeks, but again, we get far enough. The next 2 guys, Jonathan Stewart and Matt Forte, both have week 11 bye weeks, which is the same as Frank Gore. By the time you get to week 11, we may not even have Frank Gore. Jonathan Stewart and Matt Forte may both be injured. So the The other thing that we could do, so that's our running backs available: Jonathan Stewart, Matt Forte, C.J. Prosise, Latavius Murray is the quote-unquote handcuff for Dalvin Cook. And then wide receiver, we've got some guys with some upside in Devontae Parker, Cameron Meredith, Corey Coleman. No, he'll fall on a football and get hurt again. Jeremy Maclin and Mike Wallace. So that's what we're kind of looking at there. We don't need to look at a quarterback. Once you draft one, you're good. You can always find a backup, or you can always find a bye week replacement later on in the season. So, So again, running backs that we have available: Stewart, Forte, Prosise, Murray, and then at wide receiver, Devontae Parker, Cameron Meredith, Corey Coleman, Jeremy Maclin, and Mike Wallace. So I like Devontae Parker. I think that he very well could be in for a big season this year. There's a lot of hype coming out of Miami, but there's always a lot of hype coming out of Miami. So
I think he's probably the safer of the two between him and Cameron Meredith, simply because you don't know what Beaker's chemistry is going to be with the guys on the field. For all Beaker's going to find a healthy Kevin White, and that ends up being the steal of the draft, right? So there's a little bit more risk in taking, I think, Meredith over Parker. I would go with Parker, yeah.
Yeah, to me, it's right here. It's either Parker or Prosise. There's a lot of hype. Obviously, we've talked about it ad nauseum about the Dolphins. The part that I want to say about C.J. Prosise is look who he has in front of him. Thomas Rawls was plagued with injuries last year and was borderline effective when he was healthy. The other piece is Eddie Lacy, with a better offensive line last year, struggled mightily as a running back. He's now going to a worse situation in Seattle from a running back perspective in terms of blocking on the line. I think Prosise would be a nice bet to be an impactful player later in the season, but I like Parker here as a wide receiver.
Okay, here's the thing. A lot of people think that Eddie Lacy struggled last year, and he actually didn't. He had 360 yards for a 5.1 yards per carry average. The problem was because of his weight, he had problems with his ankles. So he was playing pretty well. He just couldn't keep the weight off. So yes, I understand that he's going to a worse situation with the offensive line. I fear Eddie Lacy injury more than I fear Eddie Lacy not performing, to be completely honest. So CJ Prosise is going to have a role in the offense, but again, you're also looking at more with Prosise, you're looking at more injury proneness, I guess would be the word to say there. So okay. I think Devontae Parker solidifying up the wide receivers. And then after this, once you have, with two running backs and two wide receivers and a flex, your flex is a wide receiver, and having another solid one in Devontae Parker. After that, I'm fine to just go down with, picking running backs down the rest of the way, just because we have such a solid wide receiver core. Because our running backs are somewhat shaky, I guess would be the nice way to say it. I'm fine to just look for who's got the best upside as far as you go down the rest of the way. But that's me. So we'll go ahead and draft Devontae Parker. Okay, so after Parker went – oh, wait, well, here. We did Samaje Perine, then it went Stephon Diggs, Theo Riddick, Willie Snead. Oh, that's a name that we overlooked. Robert Kelly, Pierre Garçon, Eric Decker. Then we took Devontae Parker. So after Parker went Latavius Murray, Kenneth Dixon out of Baltimore, who will be starting the season with a 4-game suspension, Jamal Williams out of Green Bay, Jeremy Maclin, Zach Ertz. Our first defense taken is the Denver Broncos. Then Rashard Matthews out of Tennessee, Randall Cobb. Man, Randall Cobb all the way down at the end of round 9 in a 12-team league. That's low. Matt Forte started off round 10. Jeremy Hill, C.J. Prosise, then the Seattle Seahawks defense, Terrence West, Mike Wallace, Corey Coleman, and then our third defense, the Kansas City Chiefs. So for running backs, we've got Jonathan Stewart, James White, Duke Johnson, Thomas Rawls, and Jamal Charles. Then at wide receiver, we have Cameron Meredith, Jordan Matthews, Kenny Britt, and John Brown. And Tyrell Williams, that's another name to look at. I think that he could have a pretty good year, especially if their rookie Mike Williams is still having back issues once we're going into the season. So that's what we got. Again, running backs that we have available: Stewart, who was available last round. Then we've got White, Duke Johnson, Thomas Rawls, Jamal Charles, and the wide receivers: Cameron Meredith, Jordan Matthews, Kenny Britt, John Brown, Tyrell Williams. So, Greg, do you have any preference there?
Do you, out of curiosity, the next few names on that running back list, who comes out of that after that bag of crap you just handed me?
After Jamal Charles, we've got Giovanni Bernard, who's coming off of a torn ACL. You have Darren Sproles, who knows how much he's going to be used in Philadelphia. You have the rookie Joe Williams, who many think will actually take over for Carlos Hyde, because no one thinks that Carlos Hyde will stay with all the problems that he's had with injuries over the last couple of years. I know that we had a report that we announced earlier in the season about how the new brass in San Francisco does not like Carlos Hyde. And so I could see going – I mean, at this point, once you have your starters, it's all conjecture. So I could see the possibility of going with a Joe Williams. And then
a third rookie running back.
Yeah, why not? And Alvin Kamara, Dion Lewis, Marlon Mack, which is another rookie. But again, look at the rookies that we're getting. The rookies that we're getting are going to be competitive for starting position.
They're going to play. They were drafted for a reason, specifically in situations where they have a bad starter.
Yeah. So let's see. Well, our only rookies so far, our only two rookies, we only have Dalvin Cook and Samaje Perine, so that's only two rookies so far. So that's the running back list. So
if it were me, based on what you told me, there's some quote unquote safer picks, but those are turds. When it comes to potential, again, upside, guys who can get into flex positions, I start looking more at Joe Williams then.
Okay. Justin.
This late, I really like Tyrell Williams. One of the things that he was a 1,000-yard receiver last year. Yes, there were injuries throughout the wide receiver core for the Chargers last year, which kind of led to him emerging. But 69 catches, 1,059 yards, and 7 touchdowns. I think that is a steal this late in the draft to have a 1,000-yard receiver still on the board. I think that's an option. But we're very, very stacked at the wide receiver side of things. So I have no problem going with Joe Williams, who I honestly think may even be the day one starter if these reports coming out of San Francisco continue to stay the same.
All right. So we'll go with Joe Williams. And everyone's laughing at us because, Jonathan Stewart goes right after us. All right, Jonathan Stewart, then James White. Kenny Britt out of Cleveland went. Eric Ebron, tight end. Jordan Matthews, and then Jack Doyle goes 11-3. So just to remind everyone who we have, especially for those who are just joining us, possibly saw we had a few new people on Twitter. So on our draft so far, we have Tom Brady is our quarterback. Our running backs, since we took kind of a zero running back strategy, our running backs are Dalvin Cook and Frank Gore. Our wide receivers are Antonio Brown, DeAndre Hopkins. Our tight end is Greg Olsen. Our flex is Larry Fitzgerald. And our bench so far is Samaje Perine, Devontae Parker, and Joe Williams. So two running backs and a wide receiver. I'd be fine to pick up maybe one or two more running backs. I don't ever pick up a second quarterback or a second tight end. So if we wanted to maybe get two more running backs and another wide receiver and then hit our DST and kicker, we'll just kind of randomly hit whoever best available at the time is. I'm fine to go that way. So, all right. So if we want to look if we want to maybe look at a wide receiver who could possibly step up into that flex role, Cameron Meredith is still available. John Brown is still available. I don't like John Brown, honestly, because of he's had injury history with his hamstrings. Last year, having the thing come up with the sickle cell trait could cause some issues again with his endurance this next season. Plus, Arizona drafted. We already have Larry Fitzgerald. So, Tyrell Williams is the number 3 wide receiver available. Then Adam Thielen and Quincy Enunwa out of the New York Jets, and I believe Enunwa will probably be the number 1 wide receiver for the Jets. But he's got no one to throw to him. So, going back to running backs, Duke Johnson, Thomas Rawls, Jamal Charles are still available. Giovanni Bernard, Darren Sproles, Alvin Kamara, Dion Lewis, Marlon. So all those guys that we basically talked about in our last one are still available. The computer here tells us to take Thomas Rawls, Jamal Charles, or to possibly draft our defense with the Houston Texans. So personally, right here, I'm good to go with Justin's last thoughts on Tyrell Williams to pick up another really solid wide receiver that we know can get the job done.
Yeah, I think at this point, if we're going to, be open to other positions, and Williams is absolutely the pick that you take. I will say that this points out the fact that the last pick we made is the right pick. And the reason is that all that same crap is still there later on.
It's still there.
Right?
Yeah.
And so if that's the case, then that's just sifting through, right? And that's fine. That's finding true value. You're getting it backed up by computers and the quote-unquote experts. So we just saw it early.
One name that I want to ask about really quickly, Ryan, because I haven't heard his name said yet, has Josh Doxson been drafted yet?
I seriously doubt it. No, he's number 55. So here's the leftover wide receivers: Cameron Meredith, John Brown, Tyrell Williams, Adam Thielen, Quincy Enunwa, Marvin Jones, Brashad Perriman, Mike Williams, and Josh Doxson there at 55. Other names to be honest, other names that I like in terms of wide receivers, Sterling Shepard is still available. Zay Jones is still available. He's a guy I really like. I think could be, especially if Watkins can't stay healthy, Zay Jones will be the number 1 wide receiver in Buffalo because there's no one else to do it. So
here's what I'll say. As much as I like Tyrell Williams, there is a slew of wide receivers there for the Chargers. Obviously, 2 real number 1s in front of him. So I would lean towards Zay Jones a little bit, completely forgetting that he was still there in Buffalo.
Yeah, but
though they are a run-first offense, could splash a little bit, especially if Sammy Watkins goes down.
I think if we were to go Tyrell Williams, maybe take another running back and then see if honestly, I think Zay Jones in this draft will go undrafted, to be completely honest, with how far down he is.
I'm fine with that idea.
Mm-hmm.
So if we take Tyrell Williams, then and then we just if this is our actual league, we just put Zay Jones on our waiver wire watch. So we'll go with Tyrell Williams. Bye week 9. We're still doing good there. So all right. So we've got Tyrell Williams. So our backups are Samaje Perine, Devontae Parker, Joe Williams, and Tyrell Williams. So after we took Tyrell Williams, John Brown, Jamal Charles, Jaquiz Rogers, the Houston Texans defense, Cameron Meredith, Duke Johnson, Andy Dalton, and Adam Thielen round out round 11. Round 12, we had start off with the Arizona Cardinals defense, then Kenny Stills, Mike Williams, Julius Thomas, CJ Fedorowicz, Kobe Fleener, New England's defense, and Jared Cook. So a lot of those tight ends have been flying the last couple rounds. So in terms of running backs, we still have all the same crap is still available there. Thomas Rawls, Giovanni Bernard, Darren Sproles, Alvin Kamara. I like Alvin Kamara, but he's buried underneath both Mark Ingram and Adrian Peterson. It would take an injury for him to get it. It would take 2 injuries for him to see significant time. We've got Marlon Mack as the possible handcuff, which for me, it's not so much. I saw an article. It's not so much handcuffing, is if you are drafting, basically team running backs. So it would be like drafting Freeman and Tevin Coleman because both of them are extremely productive. That's one way to look at it. But I mean, other than that, in terms of names that I like down the rest, I mean, they're all dart throws basically the rest of the way down in the running backs. So Marlon Mack, Chris Thompson, who's really just a third down back, Shane Vereen, who's a third down back, Rex Burkhead, who would have been a great pick had they not taken Mike Gillislee from Buffalo. Burkhead would have been a solid guy, probably, who'd be going a lot earlier. Ryan Matthews.
Was Terrence West already taken?
Yes, he was taken like round 8 or so. And again, it's a bunch of backups. Wendell Smallwood, I think, could possibly take over the running back role in Philadelphia, but like I said, there's not a whole lot in here to get excited about. Jeremy McNichols could be a possible guy who could take over in Tampa Bay, because Charles Sims has proven that he is only a third down back and cannot carry the load at all. And so there's that. Or we just, we can, at this point, we can just go wherever. Like I said, there's not a whole lot out here.
Yeah, I mean, I think Frank Gore is durable enough that, Marlon Mack might be a nice guy to have sitting there on the bench, but he probably offers less upside versus a Smallwood, who at one point I actually added to my roster. Granted, my running backs were a disaster last year, so I actually got down to Smallwood last year.
So
yeah, right. So that's how you've already reached deep. So if you've actually watched him play, you do know he has flashes of brilliance. So
yeah,
I kind of like him from an upside position at this point. Given how strong we look in the passing game, I'm going all risk on running backs for just guys who might take over the job.
Okay, so Wendell Smallwood is a possibility. Justin, what are your thoughts?
This late in the draft, it's really a coin flip. So to me, we need one more running back. I think Wendell Smallwood this late in the draft is the one we go with because out of the hodgepodge of options we have currently, he's got the best shot of being a starter.
Here's one name I don't know if I mentioned Jonathan Williams, who's the backup in Buffalo. Backups in Buffalo have shown to be productive just because they focus so much on the run game. LaShawn McCoy missed at least one game this past year and has sat out parts of games last year. He is getting out there. He's got a lot of touches on that in terms of a lot of carries, a lot of catches. They plan on using him a lot more this year, so who knows how much he's going to be able to hold up. That's another thought. But, I mean, I'm good to go with Wendell Smallwood because really there's no consensus number one right now in Philadelphia other than LeGarrette Blount.
I think Jonathan Williams is too much of a reach right now. Maybe once we get into some preseason games, maybe we see a little bit more from him. But I don't think there's enough with what he did last year on the field, obviously being the third running back, but still I don't see enough there to warrant grabbing him. I'm perfectly fine being wrong on Jonathan Williams and grabbing Smallwood instead.
All right, so Wendell Smallwood it is. So after Wendell Smallwood, Dak Prescott, then Darren Sproles, Giovanni Bernard, Marvin Jones, Dallas Cowboys, and then Thomas Rawls finally was taken. So here's what we've got left. We've got one more bench spot, and then our defense and kicker. So we can honestly, if we wanted to take a backup tight end, we could. I usually don't. But here's what we got. So our team is, again, Tom Brady at quarterback. Our running backs are Dalvin Cook and Frank Gore. Our wide receivers are Antonio Brown and DeAndre Hopkins. Our tight ends are Greg Olsen. Our tight end is Greg Olsen. Our flex is Larry Fitzgerald. Again, we're very receiver heavy. Then our bench is Samaje Perine, Joe Williams, and Wendell Smallwood as backup running backs. And our 2 backup wide receivers are Devontae Parker and Tyrell Williams. So again, there's a lot of value there in the wide receiver position. So here's what we have in terms of leftovers in the running back position. Alvin Kamara, Dion Lewis, Marlon Mack, Chris Thompson, Shane Vereen, Rex Burkhead, Ryan Nilsson. So again, a lot of garbage that we've already been talking about. Wide receivers available: Quincy Enunwa, Brashad Perriman, Josh Doxson, Sterling Shepard, Robert Woods, John Ross, Tyler. So again, Zay Jones is still there. And then tight ends, what we have still available: Jason Witten, Antonio Gates, Cameron Brate is still available as the tight end 18. Zach Miller, if we wanted to, another rookie would be David Njoku. We could just load up our team with rookies. So, any thoughts on what to do here?
Kobe Fleener has been taken, correct?
Yeah, Kobe Fleener was taken, I want to say two rounds ago.
I am perfectly okay drafting a second tight end because someone like a Cameron Brate, obviously this is a fictitious scenario. I would not want Cameron Brate ready for anybody to pick up off the waiver wire. And currently with what is existing, there's too much upside there for Cameron Brate and having a flex position. There's going to be some matchups that Cameron Brate can do very, very well. Quincy Enunwa is a flyer just because we don't know the quarterback situation yet from the Jets, but they will be behind a lot, and they're going to have to throw a lot. So he may get a lot of garbage yards. So that might be an option. Those are kind of the 2 that stand out to me currently.
I agree 100%. I kind of lean more towards the wide receiver. That's just me. Because of, we're already set at tight end.
Yep.
Yeah. I know the wide receiver could click it, he could end up filling a flex role, whatever. He's more likely to be flex, within my lineup, something that I could break out in a week-to-week basis, going with a wide receiver versus the tight end on a matchup basis. So I would go with Enunwa from the Jets.
All right. So Quincy Enunwa it is. All right. And again, I'm sure people are – I'm honestly surprised we haven't had a ton of comments on Twitter or even in Facebook because I can see we've got at least 5 people watching us right now on Twitter. I'm surprised we have not been raked over the coals for some of these picks.
Because they're brilliant.
They're great picks.
There we go. Okay, so now at this point –
Skull King Nation titles, baby.
There we
That's
go.
right.
So DST and kicker, we'll take our kicker last. So here's the defenses available. The Carolina Panthers, the Baltimore Ravens, Philadelphia Eagles, Jacksonville Jaguars, Pittsburgh Steelers. Yeah. So any thoughts? I mean, I think the Carolina Panthers could rebound a little bit and have a little bit better year this year on defense.
Can you run through those once again?
So we got the Panthers, the Baltimore Ravens, the Philadelphia Eagles, the Jacksonville Jaguars, the Pittsburgh Steelers, LA Rams, Cincinnati Bengals. A lot of crappy defenses out there.
The AFC Ugly has a lot of defenses in there, so I would look for what is, historically one of the best there is, which is Pittsburgh.
Yeah, Pittsburgh could. I think that Pittsburgh could possibly have a little bit better.
You played Cleveland twice.
That's true.
And Baltimore twice. And Cincinnati twice. And all 3 of those teams have shit offenses. I mean, when you get down to it, that's really what you look at. It's like, what do those games always look like? 13-10.
Yep.
So you don't get breakout performance, but it's solid, consistent week in, week out.
Yeah, give me just one. Oh, go ahead.
I'm leaning a little more towards the Baltimore Ravens personally. I don't want to touch the Los Angeles Rams with a 10-foot pole at all. I think Were the Falcons already taken? I'm trying to think outside of my head.
Honestly, here's the way I look at it. Because I'm a stream defenses type of guy, I take the Pittsburgh Steelers because they start week 1 against the Browns.
I got it right.
Oh, there we go.
Even looking, dude. Wasn't even looking.
Yeah, I went and looked it up. I was like, well, let's see, who do they actually play first? So, I mean, I'm fine to take the Pittsburgh Steelers simply because their first week, and then from there, just you stream anyone who plays the Browns. We add the Jets and we add the Bears to that, and I think those 3 teams you always
and the 49ers maybe.
And the 49. Well, yeah, the 49ers offense, I can kind of see that. So, all right. So we're going to draft the Pittsburgh Steelers defense because, again, we're looking at matchups. We don't look for the one team to carry us the whole season. So we're going to go with the Pittsburgh Steelers as our defense.
And one of the most pointless positions, which is why it's drafted last, the kicker.
All right. So Matt Bryant out of Atlanta, Mason Crosby out of Green Bay, Adam Vinatieri out of Indianapolis, or Cairo Santos out of Kansas City. Really, you've got guys that are in highly producing offenses. In Bryant in Atlanta, the only thing that Atlanta again, Bryant kicks indoors, which is another thing to look at. Mason Crosby has been solid every year in that Green Bay offense. That scores all the time, so he's practically guaranteed for at least 3 or 4 points just off of touchdown extra points. Adam Vinatieri, again, solid, kicks indoors. Cairo Santos has a massive boot who's been pretty solid. So I personally probably go Bryant here. I don't know.
Bryant.
I don't know why we're going to debate cricket.
I actually think we should drag it out for about 15 minutes here because we're getting into some of the fine points of the game, which at the end of the day, the highest scoring players in the history of the NFL are what? That's right, kickers.
Kickers.
Who are the guys who actually are come on to win the game most often at the end of the game? That's right, kickers. But they catch a lot of crap for being the belle of the ball every week, but whatever. Who swings more games in Vegas than anybody else? That's right, kickers. But I would say, we could definitely go with Bryant in Atlanta. I'm a former Bears fan, so I inherently hate Green Bay. But it's kind of hard to go against Crosby. I think the Packers are scored more this year than they did last year.
Yeah, to me, that's where I go Crosby. Matt Bryant did solid wonders for me last year, but I just don't see Atlanta being the same offensive powerhouse this year as they were last year. Once again, we've touched on it a little bit with the new offensive coordinator, Steve Sarkisian. I think Green Bay is going to be an offensive juggernaut, is going to be able to run, or is going to be able to get the ball in the red zone more often. I think Mason Crosby, the only thing that I would say is he kicks outdoors, but either one, I'd say you're the coin flip here, Ryan.
We went with Crosby, so
okay, sweet.
All right, so according to this is how you know you had a great draft. You know how you know that? When Fantasy Pros, after you finish your draft, gives you a C-. You know that.
There we go.
You know that you rock your. If you ever have an A in your draft from Fantasy Pros, or if you're doing a mock draft on Yahoo or ESPN, and they give you a great grade, you're in trouble because you have a whole bunch of guys that are either going to get injured or bust.
Yeah, all you do is
you have 2 quarterbacks and 2 tight ends, and you don't need that.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, we according to this, we have the worst bench of anyone in the of any of the 12 picks. So, all right. So one last time, let me actually pull up the team.
But we have the best starting 7.
No. In my draft, where I went number 1 overall, I took David Johnson first because you have to be a moron not to, and then number 1 in the second round, I took Tom Brady, and that brought Aaron Rodgers immediately as the pick after that, which was kind of funny.
Interesting. So our strongest position obviously is wide receiver. Our weakest position is obviously running back. So
really?
No. That's an opinion.
All right. So here's our ranks at each position. We're number 1 in wide receivers in the league in this group of 12 that we drafted. Number 2 in quarterbacks. Number 4 in tight ends. Number 5 in kickers. Number 9 in flex. 10 in DST, 12th in running backs, and 12th in bench. So that means we should have a really solid season with that team. So
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, that finishes it off for this mock draft. We will be doing more of these as we get closer to, especially into draft season, closer to the regular season. We'll do a PPR draft. We'll kind of maybe do another couple of these, maybe one since we finished. What was that one? That was from the fourth position.
Fourth position.
I think it would be good to do one from the first and another one from the 12th. Just, learning.
12 sucks.
Yeah, it does.
But one sucks too.
I found out that in Scott Fish Bowl, I am the 12th pick. So 12 and 13 out of 12. So
Rather to be 12 than 1.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see how that goes. Since quarterbacks are super flexes, they apparently they leave off the board really fast. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. I'll be setting up a couple of mock drafts for myself on there.
You may get Antonio Brown with the 12th pick.
No,
Yeah, you got to go Tom Brady there. Tommy
honestly,
B, number 1.
what very well may happen is I could probably get something like a Jay Ajayi, Jordan Howard, 1-2 punch for running back, and then just kind of see where everything else goes from there. So who knows? I'm still looking at how I want to actually do it and what'll actually be available. So, all right, that's all I've got. So Justin,
This has been the Skull King Fantasy Football Podcast, brought to you by Vox, DFS, Firelines, and Bluehost. Forgot to mention them a little bit earlier, but thank you for joining us for this mock draft from the fourth position in a standard league. Once again, this is Skull King Fantasy Football signing off.
all right, we'll talk to you guys later. Hey, Skull King Nation, thank you for listening to the Skull King Football Podcast. Did you like this episode? If so, be sure to go to iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and YouTube to subscribe. Also, please leave us a rating and reviews to let us know how we can better help you rule your leagues.